Tom, welcome.
Hello.
So, Balance the Grind. Welcome to Balance the Grind. It actually, you're over there in Leeds. I'm here in Sydney, but it looks by the background we're in actually the same coffee shop, which I think is quite cool.
I like
Now, for anyone who doesn't know, and there'll be plenty of people reading this publication who don't know, tell us
that.
what you do, Tom.
So I am a recruiter by nature. So I work for a company called the Nudge Group, and we work with startups all over the world, supporting founders with their growth journeys.
And just to sort of frame that a little bit more, when you say you're a recruiter, you are the director of the UK office that also covers Europe and the US of A. So
Yes.
recruiter is a very modest term.
I,
Um,
I, I think I'm a modest person.
so as you know, balance the grind, daily routines, habits, living your life better, all these kinds of things. We all want to live our life better. We all
Yeah.
self-sabotage. We all set
Yes.
ourselves goals. We all fail them. We all do all this kind of stuff. The purpose of this podcast has always been to sort of highlight um, our failures and our winnings and what we've learned, right? And I think,
Mhm.
when you and I spoke yesterday, we talked about how last year was probably one of the hardest years you've ever had in terms
Yeah.
of the market that you worked in, the role that you worked in, your health that you worked in, pretty much everything. So,
Mhm.
without going into too much detail on the negative, because I want to focus on the positives, talk a little bit to me about what happened to you last year and why it happened.
Yeah, I think that it kind of boils down to workload. We're all kind of, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Workload dominates. Yeah, your workload always dominates everything else, and I think that it's trying to break that habit of not letting it do that. And we're all guilty of doing it from time to time.
Yeah.
I mean, last year, and I won't dwell on this too much, but the kind of the working hours were just so extended. I didn't have well, I couldn't find the time to go to the gym and continue. So, uh, sort of Q3 last year, I think I started putting on maybe 1 or 2 stones just before Christmas, because again, it boils down to that time that we all kind of fall, that time trap we all fall into,
And,
where
and before you go any further, let's also like frame that up because before that you were super fit, right? You were a PT. You've
yeah.
had periods of your life where you are like you're not someone who's just suddenly discovered fitness. Like this
Oh no,
was,
no,
it was
100%.
almost the opposite, right?
Yeah, complete opposite. So when I left school, I'd always been in the gym during school and always played sports throughout school and university. And then I qualified as a personal trainer, and I did that for a couple of years before I got into recruitment. And I've always kind of maintained that level of fitness over the last 20 years, whether it's doing kind of tough mudders or hiking. I do a lot of mountaineering. So I was actually supposed to go to Nepal last year, but that I had to kind of can that for 12 months. Um, but yes, I've always been kind of into fitness. And I feel like that when you are fit and you have a fit body, it's very easy to keep a fit mind.
Mhm.
I think the two are so intertwined. And I kind of lost that sort of Q3 last year, given the challenges that not just us, this isn't the sob story by any stretch. Everybody in the world was facing it, right?
I think, yeah. I mean, obviously, I interview all sorts of different people for this show, and no one had a great year apart from Taylor Swift. No one had a great year. I think she's the only one. Um, but yeah, I think it was the more I reflect on it and the more people I interviewed this year, 2024, it almost like was a pause year for everyone. Like no one did anything. Everyone just
Mm.
kind of held their breath. And that, as we all know from an economic point of view, is not great. Like you
No,
need
it's not.
the economy is about movement, right? It's about constant movement in any way, up, down, doesn't matter as long as it's moving. And no one
Yeah,
moved
exactly.
last year, which was weird. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, and that's exactly the same as you as a human being as well. If you're not moving, and you're not getting that kind of that exercise and putting that routine together, it is going to have a negative impact on everything else.
Yeah.
Everything's going to fall down.
So how did you get through that? And I'm not talking about now where you are, But when you were going through that, and did you realize you were going through it? How did that affect you mentally? And then I know you've come out the other
Yeah,
side now, and did you accept it? Did you not accept? Like, talk to me a little bit about the psychology of
I
that.
think that, yeah, I mean, it's a really good kind of thinking point, to be honest, because I've probably done a lot of self-reflection last year, but I've probably not opened up and talked to this about anybody. Um,
Welcome to
Obviously,
my
Steve,
couch.
yeah, you know a few bits and pieces of everything else that's been going on, but for the people that are watching, so me and my partner were doing IVF. We're still doing IVF. So that was a really big kind of stress at home that we were going through. So it was kind of challenging at work, long days, and then the kind of the IVF on an evening on a weekend, and it totally consumed everything. So the kind of you know the fitness, the healthy eating, just kind of all went out. And it was actually so I've got a 10-year-old son, and we were playing football on a Saturday before Christmas, just kicking the ball about, and I was knackered, and I was like, this is not me at all. And it was literally, I just had to give my head a shake and said, you know what, this needs to change. And I think that I put a post about this on my LinkedIn, that there's a huge difference between motivation and discipline. You can search for motivation and you can find that in a million different places, but motivation won't keep you going 100% of the time. Discipline keeps you going. And it was the discipline that I'd lost last year and not realized it, because everything else just seemed more important at the time. Um, and your health, there's nothing more important than your own health and family. You know, it comes above everything else. Um, so I think that, yeah, that was the kind of waking up moment, I guess.
I love that. I've not heard anyone say that there's motivation and discipline.
Mm,
Motivation is easy. You can find
yeah,
motivation, but
yeah,
motivation doesn't
100%.
last, whereas discipline does. And it's interesting.
Mhm.
I've never heard anyone break the two apart. I think that's an awesome analogy. Yeah, I've not seen that. So all right, so let's talk about how did you go about it? I mean, the one thing we've learned with Balance the Grind is small changes over periods of time create massive differences. So
Yeah,
what did you do? Did you do what I usually
yeah.
do, which is if things are going wrong, I'm going to make huge changes for a week? Or did you make small changes every period of time? Tell me how you pulled yourself out of this hole, because you look pretty good now.
Yeah, so thank you first of all. Still a long way to go. For me, I've always been the same. I throw myself into things 100%. I don't see my brain doesn't work the way of just trying something or doing a little bit of something. If I'm committing to something, I'm committed. So for me, and it sounds different, but that sounds really strange. I went for a complete shock and awe approach, and I actually watched a TV program with a guy called Wim Hoff, who does
Oh,
like
did you?
ice baths and things like that, cold
Yeah.
water therapy.
What's the
Um,
program called? Was it on
oh
Netflix?
my gosh.
Because I want to
Um,
read his book, but I'm struggling for time. But if there's a program, I want to watch it. What
yeah,
was
there is a program.
is it?
I'll
What can you
send you
remember
the
what
program.
platform it was on?
It was on BBC iPlayer here in the
Oh, in
UK. I'm
Australia.
not sure
Okay.
if you
Yeah,
get
you
that.
can get it. I'll have a look. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
I'm sure we can put the link somewhere for if
We
people
will.
want to
We'll
kind of check
find it.
that
We'll
out.
put it in the
Um, but it's kind of like a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's just a fad. You know, it's not sustainable." But I thought, no, do you know what? I'm going to go buy an ice bath. This is going to be my shock and awe approach, and I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to do it for a month and see what happens. Um, First week, awful, absolutely, absolutely terrible. Why am I doing this? Absolutely, this is
like
mental. You
I've
know?
done a couple times. It hurts. Like it
Yeah, it
actually
really does
hurts.
hurt.
Like, your whole
Yeah,
body
massively.
hurts. Not a hurt
It's
like any other kind of hurt either. It's not like a, I don't know, it's different. It's like a, I
yeah.
can't even describe it.
No, it's painful. But then after sort of that kind of probably 1 week, 2 weeks, I really started seeing a huge improvement on my mental capacity to be
Really,
able
in
to
what way?
focus on tasks.
Like clarity?
Um, yeah, it was almost I mean, fast forward, I've been doing this now for 3 months, maybe solid every single day,
Every
and
every day.
every day now, every morning I'll go in the ice bath. So my routine now consists of getting up at sort of 5:30, taking the dogs out, going for a walk, coming back, go to the gym or kind of jump on and do some admin tasks. Then I'll have my breakfast. Then I'll jump in the bath, and I can do quite easily now 6, 7 minutes
What
without it having. a massive impact.
How long was your first one?
Oh, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds. It was literally, it probably took me more time to actually get into my kind of swimmers and get in the tub than staying in there. It certainly took me a lot. I spent a lot more time building the thing. I think it took me about an hour. But yeah, so I can go in there now and almost go into kind of a meditation state when I'm in there. I get so much clarity now from being in there, and it's completely transformed how I am as a person. Probably more so or better than what I was previously.
Wow.
Um, back in the gym, back training as well. Hopefully, Nepal is going to go ahead later on this year to do base camp. But yeah, I think that it's just setting those little goals and going after them.
Tell me, when you're in that ice bath now, 6, 7 minutes, a long time. Like I think I've done 5 minutes a while ago, and it took me a while to build up to that. And then I didn't do
Mhm.
it for 6 months, and I went back in again 3 weeks ago, and I bought 3 minutes, and I was like, oh my God, how did I ever do six? Obviously, there's an element of building up to it. What do you think about? Because I find if I go in with someone else, because I use a big group communal one, which sounds super weird, but I use a big group communal one. And if there's someone else there, I can talk to them to help the time pass. But if you're in there on your
Yeah,
own, right, you're in your own head. What do you think
yeah,
about
yeah. It gets to a point where you don't think about anything, and I think, and that's I
that's the
guess, the addiction to it, because I literally go into such a state now where all I'm concentrating on, all I'm thinking about is my breathing, and I can stay in there, and literally 5 minutes will go by, and then I'll look at my watch and go, "Oh, I need to get out." Unless the dog's in the garden, and then it's absolute chaos because he's like, "Dad, what are you doing what are you doing in there?"
Did your dog call you dad?
Yeah, in my head, he does. Yeah.
So I'll be, you know what I'm doing? Actually, we should talk about this. Next Friday, I'm going on this experience, if you want to call it, and it's called a breathless experience. And it's all about this breathing technique that is apparently you can do this breathing technique for 10, 20 minutes and it gives you the same as an hour's meditation. So I'm
Nice.
trying that and reviewing it for Balance to Grind. Obviously, I'm doing the review, and Hey, I'll be there filming it. And I'm intrigued to know whether I can take what I learned there and then incorporate that into ice. So I'll show you that. This guy's doing it all.
Yeah.
A fascinating young guy who doing that. And he was someone who found Wim Hof, and then he's gone off and found this whole thing. So
Yeah.
I'll let you know how that goes. But it's fascinating how something as simple as sitting in cold water for 6 minutes a day can change
Yeah.
your life. Don't you find that just
But
astounding?
it's insane when you think about it. When you say the words out loud, it makes no sense to a normal person that
No,
that would be any benefit. But from a scientific point of view, you get a spike in endorphins. I don't know if
it
that's the
is.
right
But
word.
I've also heard
Um,
that your liver releases a enzyme that
right.
apparently combats all bad things in your body, whether it be cancer,
Oh
whether
wow.
it be Alzheimer's, anything. Like the cold
Mhm.
water treatment, apparently, because you go into survival mode, your body releases this enzyme that basically just goes out and can take on the world. And so by
Yeah.
doing it continuously, you reduce your chances of all those things. I mean, who knows,
Yeah.
right? But that's the science at the moment. It's quite interesting. So I guess you've pulled yourself out of that sort of place where you felt you let yourself go. But at the same time, you were achieving a lot of work. How do you
Yeah.
find that now? Do you find that because you've brought that other side of your world, i.e., balance, into your world, that even though you're spending less time at work, you're performing at a higher level, or that you're just happier,
Yeah.
or what?
No, 100%, completely. Back what you're saying there. I think that when like I said earlier on, if you've got a strong mind, and a strong body, you can make everything else work. And what I like to do now is I block out my time. So, say between 9 and 11, I'll do this task, and then I have a break at lunchtime. So I wasn't breaking for lunch either. I was at my desk, at my laptop.
Yeah, it's no good at all.
14, 15 hours have gone by, and I'm like, I've not even had anything to eat. It's like I better go home. Whereas now everything's kind of blocked out in my diary, and I'm so focused on maintaining that. And I actually got that from yourself because there was when you came over to the UK and we had a meeting. My inbox has always been just just my inbox. I've never known any other way to work it. And if you remember, you showed me
I
about
do remember.
and clearing your inbox at the end of each day if you can. So just your to-do tasks are in there.
It's it's a
Game
thing.
changer.
Yeah, it's a thing of achievement, right? It's a sense.
Yeah.
Humans need a sense of achievement, no matter how small. I
Mhm.
believe. I mean, look, I didn't know you'd actually adopted that.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, that was, I think I was sharing with you just something that has really worked for me so much over the years. I didn't know you'd adopted that.
Yeah, 100%. And it absolutely, because I was like, whatever, this can't work,
Oh,
you know.
thanks.
It's but it absolutely does work, you know. Like if I get to the end of the day and I've got sort of 12 emails in my inbox, which I know doesn't sound a lot, but once
Sounds a lot to me.
if you start incorporating this where you clear your inbox every day, 12 is a lot. I have to go through those and just make sure now that is this a task that needs doing? And there might be 6 in there at the end of the day. However, they will be actioned later on in the week. So it's just a great way to manage
Can I tell
your
you how
time, your
best,
diary,
best I've
everything.
become with this? And this will make you laugh. So obviously we came back from holidays, January, particularly here in Sydney. Last
Mhm.
week there were 2 days where I got down to none.
Oh,
Like
okay.
none. And you know what? This is just so messed up. I couldn't go to sleep because I was sitting there waiting for something to come in because I wanted to wake up and there'd be none. And that's never going to happen, right? We have a global business. I can't possibly go to sleep for 8 hours and then wake up for none.
Yeah,
But I was
yeah,
sitting there at 11 o'clock at night going, I can't go to bed because I think something's going to come through in a minute. Because I was so excited that I got down to zero. Anyway,
yeah.
pushed past that. I pushed past that now, but it
Good.
became a bit of an obsession. But it does, yeah. I think I'm glad you've adopted that. And there's a few other people that I know that have adopted that it's changed their lives. Not for everyone, I'm sure. All right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone, like you said, but I think there's so much out there that you can incorporate into your day-to-day activities. There's so much help out there.
And that's my
You know,
last question to you.
go on.
Two things, share with our audience, two things that you think maybe not as weird as getting your emails down to zero as I shared with you, but two things that you think everyone can do that will reduce their anxiety. Because that's ultimately what I think is the biggest problem in the Western world right now. Everyone is anxious about things.
Yeah, massively. I can give you one straight off the bat, and it sounds ridiculous. When you get up in the morning, make your bed because that's the first. You've set a goal, you've set a task,
Heard
you've
that.
completed that task before you even left your room.
I've heard that a few times.
Yeah,
And what's number
it's
two?
set. Number two, oh gosh, I would say manage your time. So block out your time, set yourself guidelines of if I'm doing a task, I'm going to complete this task, or I'm going to work this task for this amount of time, then I'm going to move on to something else. I think so many people are trying to do 10, 12 tasks all at the same time. And then you either A, burn yourself out and you don't complete any of the tasks, or you end up doing them poorly. And who wants to do that?
I'd agree with you entirely. Tom, thank you for coming on. Well done for pulling yourself. Make sure you stay there. And I'm sure we'll
Thank
have you
you.
back on maybe in another year and see how you're going.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed this.
Pleasure.